not precess. While all those stars are precessing in the precessional year of the equinox, Sirius is always there, faithful and true, because we're in a binary with Sirius. This is the second proof that I will offer tonight. Now, and there are figures in the book too, by the way. I really recommend that you get this book and check it out, because this book really does show that we're in a binary. The third proof is time deltas. That's better. Time delta. What's a time delta? Well, you know, you see these pies, and they give you a little bit of a delta. This is 20% of something, and this is 80%, right? That's a little pie, a slice of the pie. That's a delta, like a river delta, you know? Because it looks like the letter delta in the Greek alphabet, or the modern D. It's a D. Delta comes from D, so it still looks like the delta, right? A river delta. Now, what's a time delta though? We put the sun there and we put the Earth going around the sun, and we've got a moon that goes around us. And that moon goes around every 29.5 days. It takes to go from that point there back to that point there. No, sorry. I'll correct that. It's the other way around. It takes 29.5 days to fulfill its synodic phase. The synodic moon cycle. What's that? Well, it's the it's all of that. From new moon to full moon. So there's the moon waxing, there's quarter moon waxing, there's full moon, and there's quarter moon waning, and then there's the new moon. Okay? Now, it takes 29.5 days to do that. But to go from here to that point is 27.2 days. So to go right around the Earth takes 27.2 days. But for the moon to fulfill its phases from new moon to new moon, or from full moon to full moon, is 29.5 days. So we've got 2.2 time delta. There's a difference of 2.2 days. There's a difference of 2.2 days, right? So what that is they call that a time delta. Like that. Now, why is that? Well, let me explain why that is. Because the moon will take 27 days to go right around, but by the time it goes right around, our Earth has done 30 degrees. Because in 30 days, the moon, the Earth has gone 30 degrees around the sun. So what's happened is that catch-up is represented in these 2.2 days. Okay, do I need to explain that again? Because I feel I didn't do justice to that.
So what you're saying is the time that the Earth travelled around the sun that's 2.2 days for that period the moon travels around the Earth to get that full delta.
Yes. So the moon will go right around the Earth in 27.2 days, but for it to fulfill its phases, it'll take 29.5 days. Because there's a lag. Because of excuse me. How to explain that is that there is because the Earth is curving. The Earth is curving, so it's got to catch up. It's pretty much like, you know, your athletics field and track. They're like this, right? And there's all these concentric circles, right? When this guy starts off over here, and this guy starts over here, and this guy starts over here, and then this guy starts over here, right? That's not unfair to this guy, because this guy's going to go around this curve real quick, and this guy's got double the distance, and this guy too. So it's because of the curve. Now the Earth is curving around the Sun. Therefore the Moon will take exactly 2.2 days to fulfill, longer than 27.2 to fulfill its synodic cycle. That's a time delta. Now, our Earth has a time delta. As we go around the Sun, and as our Sun goes around Sirius, there's a 20-minute time delta. So, as with the time delta with the Moon, because of the curving of the Earth around the Sun, because our Sun is also curving in an orbit around Sirius, there will be a time delta, and there is in fact 20-minute time delta. So the tropical year, or the solar year, what they call the solar year, is 365 days, 0.25, thereabouts, right? That's the tropical solar year. But the sidereal year, that's not very good writing, is it? I'll just check the spelling. Your sidereal year, that is 20 minutes longer. So if you're watching the Sun every year come up, every year at the same spot, the tropical, if you're following the tropical year or the solar year, and you're paying attention to the stars, you will notice that the stars take 20 minutes longer every year to come up also at that same spot. So how that is explained in the lost star is that our Sun must be curving. That's another proof that we're in a binary. Alright, now that's about all I want to that's all the graphs that I want to do to talk about the binary. What I want to do is now read a few works from scholars that have spoken about the binary. You know about this one, I know, because I've shared this one with you, but Sri Yukteswar in the 1800s, the Hindu, or the Indian scholar rather, he said that in the early pages of this book, he said, "We learn from Oriental astronomy that moons revolve around their planets, and planets turning on their axes revolve with their moons round the Sun, and the Sun with its planets and their moons takes some star for its jewel and revolves round it in about 24,000 years of our Earth, a celestial phenomenon which causes the backward movement of the equinoctial points round the zodiac." I'm now quoting from a book, Christianity Before Christ, by John G. Jackson. And in that book, on page 183, now I'm sharing this information, it's just information and it's scientific. I'm sharing this with you just to show you how, as Humboldt said, everything is interrelated. Okay, so if we can interrelate everything, we get a picture of reality as it really is. So we're not going to be fooled by our institutions. Here is a quote from George R. Goodman from The Age of Unreason, an article in the Freethinker, volume 135, page 182. It was written in the 40s, I believe, last century. "Our entire solar system, with all its planets and moon, describes a huge circle round another sun in space, viz. The star Sirius. This movement takes 25,920 years, that's the figure I put up there before, to complete, and during that time our Sun appears to traverse through various constellations or star clusters. This was already known to the ancient, from China to Mexico and from Babylon to Egypt." Albert Churchwood, also writing in the 18th century. All these guys are from the 18th century. Interesting. Anyway, He says, our sun was thrown off from another sun around which it revolves, taking 25,827 years to perform its cycle of 1 year, the one great year of the Egyptians. So he's giving a figure of 25,827. Now just pay attention to this though. What he said was, our sun was thrown off from another sun around which it revolves. Okay? Thrown off. And that's Sirius, obviously. And that's what the legends say, that our sun was thrown off from Sirius. Joseph A. Cease, The Gospel in the Stars. Interesting subject, isn't it? I'm going to talk about this later on. Interesting title. Here he says in the introduction, Sirius alone gives out nearly 400 times as much light as the sun, and yet Sirius is a star of moderate size among the stars. The sun is no more to many other stars than one of our smaller planets is to it. We know that the sun turns on its axis as the earth turns, and that it is ever moving on a journey around some transcendently greater centre, just as the earth and other planets revolve around it as their centre. Now I just want to read one more. This is an interesting source. This is Thy Kingdom Come, from the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses, Charles Taze Russell, and he knew about this cycle. This is what he had to say. And he gave the same figure as the last book I read from. He said that the cycle astronomers have concluded to be 25,827 years. Commenting upon the scientific testimony of the location of this majestic witness, Reverend Joseph Cease suggests, they must have been buddies, that's Joseph Cease. And as Charles Taze Russell is quoting from this book, all right, because they've got the same figure for precession, 25,827 years. But this is a very, very interesting source. I'm just reading this because it's just so interesting how these religious people were thinking in the 1800s when they discovered, or they started to discover, that we are in a binary, and that information has been withheld from us for a long, long time. And there's a reason. Because if we realise that we're in a binary, and we realise that we are in this 24,000 year great cycle, we will understand all things. We will understand everything. Everything. And he says, the sun is not a dead centre with planets wheeling about it and itself stationary. So he's saying the sun's just not stationary out there. It's also moving at great speeds. He says, it is now ascertained that the sun also is in motion, carrying with it its splendid retinue of comets, planets, its satellites, and theirs around some other and vastly mightier centre. Astronomers are not yet fully agreed as to what or where that centre is. Some, however, believe that they have found the direction of it to be the Pleiades. Please remember that, the Pleiades. That's the little star cluster right next to Taurus, which is next to Orion, which is next to Sirius. So we have all these beautiful stars. So in Taurus you'll see the Pleiades and you'll see the Hyades. The Hyades are the head of Taurus. And the Pleiades that Russell is talking about, they stand between Taurus and Aries. Very important fact to keep in mind. Okay? Some, however, believe that they have found the direction of it to be the Pleiades, and particularly Alcyone, the central one of the renowned Pleiadic stars. Alcyone is the most prominent star of the Pleiades. They're called the Seven Sisters. Beautiful little cluster. It looks like the crown jewels of the skies. And the Bible talks about them. And in the Bible, that allusion that it's making to the Pleiades has to do with Halloween, the hallowed days. Because when the Pleiades are directly above on November the 1st,